Aerial scouts from the 71st Separate Hunting Brigade of the Ukrainian Airborne Assault Forces reported via Telegram the destruction of a large concentration of Russian troops using FPV drones. The enemy infantry tried to hide, but in the end, they were buried in the Ukrainian land, read the accompanying caption to the released video. According to the report, paratroopers spotted a large concentration of enemy personnel moving from the forest plantation to a house in the temporarily occupied territory. Several FPV strikes forced them to run to another house, but they were also caught there by kamikaze drones, the report said. The footage shows UAV operators methodically targeting the Russians with kamikaze attack drones and recording all the movements of the enemy as they tried to escape from the firing zone, hide in abandoned buildings, and flee the battlefield in vehicles. The video concluded with several Russian soldiers attempting to escape in a car, but it showed a kamikaze drone targeting their vehicle. They were also overtaken by ruthless drones of paratrooper hunters, the report stated. FPV drones, capable of dropping explosives or being used as one-off kamikaze drones, are wreaking havoc on the battlefield. Recently, a Russian soldier pleaded on social media to pump shotguns to help stop the Ukrainian drones, saying, "They're simply burning through us." On the other hand, up to 90% of wounded Ukrainian soldiers treated at stabilization points have been hit by an FPV drone, or explosives dropped by a drone. Special operations forces often report the destruction of enemy manpower concentrations with FPV drones. For instance, Special Ops reported the elimination of more than a dozen Russian soldiers during a successful mission. Russia endured one of its most catastrophic days of fighting on Sunday, taking the total number of casualties to over 500,000. As it continues to sacrifice both bodies and materiel to the front lines, all while enduring costly economic sanctions, this high toll raises the question of how much longer its strategy of attrition warfare can be sustained. A further 1,300 Russian military personnel died in the 24 hours up to Monday, June 24th, during fighting in Ukraine, bringing the army's total casualties in Ukraine to around 535,660 soldiers. The figure came from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, which has released daily tallies of Russian casualties and losses since the war officially began in February 2022. This makes Sunday one of the most catastrophic days for the Russian army since it first embarked on the special military operation in Ukraine, and sits only slightly behind the one-day record of 1,640 losses. Alongside the 1,300 military personnel Ukraine claims died on Sunday, the Russian forces sacrificed 12 tanks, 15 armored fighting vehicles, 51 artillery systems, and 27 unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones. Russian losses in Ukraine have been ramping up continuously since the beginning of the conflict, from losing around 4,000 troops in March 2022 to nearly 40,000 in May 2024. According to the ministry's estimates, Russia has lost nearly the same number of troops in the past 3 days, 3,680, as it did in the first full month of fighting, 3,900. If the ministry's estimates are correct, this would bring Russia's total casualties to around 535,660 soldiers, compared to the at least 30,000 Ukraine admits to having lost. While Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed skepticism over Ukraine's estimates, saying that his country has suffered far fewer losses than its opponent Russia, is not only forfeiting a significant number of bodies to its war efforts. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, which also releases daily estimates of the financial toll of Russia's invasion, believes the country has spent a total of $62.5 billion on fighting in Ukraine since February 2022. While forced conscription may be able to provide the human capital necessary to continue fighting, Russia is attempting to sustain its war economy under the increasing squeeze of Western sanctions. At the G7 summit last week, member nations agreed to implement a new series of limitations and export controls, hampering the country's energy sector and limiting its access to the international finance system, in another attempt to isolate Moscow entirely from the global economy. Increasing strictures on the Russian economy have coincided with financial support for its adversary ramping up, with G7 members also agreeing to use frozen Russian assets to raise $50 billion in new aid for Ukraine.
Быстро!